Hey, folks, welcome back to the Rebel Edge. And for all you new rebels joining us, welcome. Come on in. The water's fine. Wait, I forgot, Pete.
Oh, geez. You'll have that sooner or later.
Well, it came. I ordered one of those clappers, folks, but it's down in Puerto Rico, and there's no big reason for me to go back, even though the power's back on, and luckily my place didn't get hit. But I figure I'm just a drain on the, whether I'm using water or fuel or whatever. There are people that need it more than I do right now. So I'll probably wait maybe another week, Pete, and then head back.
Gotcha.
But for all of you joining, especially all the people that were down at RebelCon 2022 in Dallas at the Four Seasons, thank you very much, whether you attended in person or virtual. We really appreciate the support, and it was a fabulous event. Just so much fun, and not just fun, but I think, from Bill Johnson to AJ to Ryan and Wayne and Greg and everybody, Pete, Brian McCormick, Chris Sikora. I mean, so many of the instructors that got to get in front of the clients face-to-face or virtually, I think that's a real plus. And I know we had a lot of positive comments, so thank you, folks.
And how great an opportunity to hear from Bryn Talkington and hear from Brian Sullivan as a host of a lot of different great discussions and everything, John. And obviously Tom Lee, how do you ever beat him? I mean, so across the board, it really was, and you got a lot of different opinions from different people, and you got a reason to understand why they've got that opinion, whether it's Tom, who's a lot more bullish, or somebody else who might be a lot more bearish, whatever. I mean, it was a great opportunity, and I'll tell you, people were absolutely excited, and they're all waiting now, John, for the next one. They can't wait, which is outstanding. That means it was a good one.
That is, and thank you guys all very much, and great to hang with those Navy SEALs, Pete, with the first responders, with the soldiers, with the police officers, with the Army Rangers, Dave Reed from the Robert Irvine Foundation, all of you guys, thank you for your service and for doing what you do so well. All right, Pete, let's dive into the 1 minute macro. Those of you who are new to the program, we do a 1 minute macro, folks, because most of the other financial, whether it's television, radio, or whatever, wastes most of their show on macro. So we're giving it 45 seconds today. Pete, one minute macro means what? Is it all 10-year, or is it 2-year, or does anything else matter?
Well, I would go down like this, John. You look over at the 2-year and you see it into the mid fours practically at this point in time. And then you look over at the 10-year, you see it 388. I will add one other thing. How about that volatility index? And I'm not talking about the VXN, which is into the middle 30s and starting to approach 40, but look at the volatility index itself, the VIX, and that over 30 really is a statement. We were over 32 actually in certain times, and the volatility is back, baby. But that's all I got for macro, John.
Yep, macro, that's it. All right, well, we have Macau, Pete, and this is a big story for a couple reasons. Number one, of course, this is where a lot of people in China go to relax and to enjoy gaming, which is famously a very attractive endeavor in China. But also, Pete, we've got rumors that Xi Jinping may be under house arrest, and maybe that place is about to open up faster. And certainly the fact that Macau is going to be opening faster than people thought. That's why those stocks are flying from Wynn to anything that touches Macau, Melco Crown or any of those, just zooming.
Yeah, they absolutely are, John. And you know what? It's amazing how many people jumped on it way too early. The reality is we have not gotten any sort of a green light until now. And now I think we are getting that green light, and I think it's becoming very clear. But so many people were wanting everybody to buy Win 50 points higher and LVS, so much higher. That was ridiculous. That was just trying to play something and playing a game. Now you've got your background of what we're looking at for Macau. They're talking about different levels. They're talking about November for certain specific levels as well. But John, if it's anything like Vegas, and it is, it's Vegas on steroids, I think this is a great place to look. And by the way, Wynn and Las Vegas Sands have hit recently. Las Vegas Sands even more frequently than Wynn, both seeing unusual option activity today. I think that's a statement about, you know what, this time it's real. A lot of those other times, everybody was trying to make something out of nothing.
Yep. And there wasn't an announcement other than a shutdown announcement. There was not a bullish announcement. And now, like Pete said, you just got one. So I think we just gave that one 2 thumbs up, Pete.
Yeah.
How about this one? Mr. Car Wash.
I know it.
A lot of people don't, though.
Right.
MCW, Mr. Car Wash. That's the symbol, too, folks. They're going to replace XL Service Holdings in the small cap 600. And it doesn't take a lot to get a small cap stock moving. And this one, you know, with people trying to keep their cars clean, because let's be real, that's what this is all about.
Yeah.
Getting some fast love today, Pete.
What a lot of people don't understand, John, is how much money these guys make in the industry. I do, because I have some very close connections into this world. Matter of fact, a lot of guys that you and I played football with over the years have gotten into that industry, John, and it's absolutely amazingly profitable. Now, here's the issue, though. Mr. Car Wash, under some huge pressure. It's up big today based upon the idea of getting put into the S&P 600, but they got an incredible amount of debt. They also have an incredibly high short interest. So is there a possibility for a squeeze, John? I think that is a possibility. Not saying that's going to happen, not saying anything like that, but when you do look at all the different fundamentals, a lot of reasons why it's a very, very interesting stock to stare at right now. I'm not there yet, but I'll tell you what, it's very close to 52-week lows. And if they get any kind of a squeeze going, this could be a pretty daggone interesting company. It's basically a $3 billion market cap as well, John.
That was what I was going to hit on, Pete, but instead I'll hit on, it's already traded 3.7 million shares today. 1.4 million is normal. So look for the inclusion in the S&P 600 to really continue to boost awareness of the stock, as well as a lot of that volume. All right, Patterson Energy, Pete. And a lot of folks would wonder, why is a company that basically is oil field service, you know, sort of like Halliburton and Schlumberger, why is the stock seeing this much love today when it's seeing pressure across the board because the dollar's zooming and the crude oil itself is falling again?
Well, it's an interesting one, John. And as you point out, it's been all over the map this year. When you look at that stock, it was down at 9.5. It got all the way up into the 20s in June. And then, you know what? We're sitting there somewhere closer to 9 or 11, somewhere in that range. It's been a really interesting stock, though, to watch how this thing has been moving around. I would say that there's a lot of different reasons why you become a little bit more bullish on this stock. I think it is a little bit cheap. That geographically, they can expand. And why is that? Because they made some nice acquisitions. This is a driller that really has some great, phenomenal, cutting edge sort of a business that they've got. And I think going forward, because of the geographical side of things, Pioneer is where they bought. They really have themselves positioned, I think, for the future. So definitely a name that I think we ought to at least keep our eyes on very close as we're looking at the energy space on what is the next level that we think. And this might be one of those types of names that I think fits in that category.
All right. Well, it sounds like we're both 2 thumbs up on this one,
thumbs
too,
up.
Pete. Yep, because Patterson Energy, folks, again, if you're talking about expanding the reach in shale through fracking and so forth, these guys, whether it's the rigs themselves or land-based stuff, they do both, and they're pretty damn good at it. All right, let's hit, Pete, just to wrap it up with the stocks today. Annalee, that's NLY. Annalee, it's basically everything from financial services to mortgages. And the company invests in agency mortgage-backed securities and so forth. NLY is the ticker. And, you know, we're looking at a stock falling by better than 10%. Why would that be? Well, because like Pete already said, if you can get on the 2-year 4.4%, do you really want to chase a dividend yield on this one less than 4 with all of the headwinds that higher interest rates bring to their mortgage business, Pete?
Well, and that answers the question right there, John. And it's another great example that I think is really important for everybody to know out there. When people decide that they're going to buy based on the yield, that's a mistake. That's just the next, that's many moves away when you're talking about the factors of why you like a company. Don't ever buy a stock just because of the high yield. Oftentimes there's a reason for that high yield. And so despite the fact that this company has a pretty high yield, how would you like to be down 25% in the name? That kind of erases a lot of that yield that you think you're going to be getting. They're changing things up. I just think you avoid this, John. If you want to have something like this, yeah, you start to look at the actual treasuries themselves. So I just think there's too much pressure, and you better be ready to put your seatbelt on in terms of mortgage rates, because we've all been watching them move all over the place, but into the 6s recently. I would say this is a no touch, John.
I'm there. So this one, 2 thumbs down, Pete.
Yep.
Even though it hit a new 52-week low today, folks, I don't think it's time to dip your toe into this one yet. I think interest rates sadly continue to go higher in the short term. And when Jay Powell and the Fed are saying 100 basis points to 150 more basis points in 2022, that is not good for NLI. All right, Pete. I'm going to kick off an unusual. You had to find it for me because I'm here. I just got out of a funeral of all this, a funeral mass up here in Milwaukee. But how about this one? NCLH. That is, of course, a play on the cruise line industry, and fuel costs going down is good for them, but they have a ton of debt. So don't lose track of that, folks, because they had to go out and raise money like crazy. They had to basically pledge all of their boats. All of these cruise companies have an enormous amount of debt. It's hard to find a group that has more debt than the cruise industry right now. Rates go up, stocks go down. So I show Pete that 5,000 of the October 7th 1350 puts. So they're buying at the 1350 strike. They're betting it goes lower, folks, and I'll bet you it's because of interest rates. How about you?
I'm going to jump on Amazon, a name that we don't get to talk about a lot, John, but we did talk about all the reasons why, despite the fact everybody else says, well, it doesn't change anything about a company when they split. Well, actually, they're wrong. And the reality is that there's a lot of things that do change, especially the fact that when you look at where it is right now, this was a name, John, Amazon. It never even came close to the top 20, 30, 50 volume names in the options world. Now it's pretty consistently somewhere in the top 10 or top 5. And that does change because access is something that does change about a company for sure. And that's what people have now. They also now, because of that, either can buy the stock or they can trade the options. Today, they're trading the options. Stock's trading right a little bit over 116, around 116 3/4. They were buying, John, about almost just short of 8,000 of the October 14th expiring 120 calls. So they are buying some time to go out into the future here, something we do not see very often right now. It seems like everything's a week out, maybe this Friday, maybe 2 weeks out, whatever it might be. They're actually buying a little bit of time in this particular case, paying about $2.80 up to a little close to $3.50 for these options. Now, let's remember, this is a cloud company, folks. Everybody looks at them and says, well, this is e-commerce and everything else. Of course they are. Where do they make their money? And that's been the issue with AWS and Amazon itself, is they weren't really making a lot of free cash flow. Their goal is to start making that free cash flow once again. And that is something that could be very, very bullish for this name. So I think it's a pretty interesting one, John. I like it a lot, and we'll see how it goes. Volatile markets, I know. That's probably why they wanted to go a little bit further in time, because of the fact that the markets are so volatile. We could see a dip. We also could see a run to the upside. But either way, they wanted to have a little bit more time. It makes a lot of sense for me for what we're seeing in the markets today.
Yeah, and I bought this one and flipped it, Pete, over the last 2 months. bought it down there at a good price, sold it at a better price, and now I'm getting interested again in this 116-ish range, like you said. All right. Well, folks, Pete missed his first Sunday huddle, the sports huddle on WCCO and the Odyssey Network. I was tuned in for it, and unfortunately, through some travel issues from Dallas back up to Minneapolis, he didn't make it. But I know you were working on all the notes that you would have had for that show, Pete. So share with us a little bit of the college and pro outlook that you have for the sports segment.
Yeah, and you got to give me your thoughts on a lot of these, John, because when we talk about the NFL, it's college football and NFL season. Let's be honest. You get into the fall, as much as baseball is great and everybody's following Aaron Judge, we all are, of course. That's been a great thing to follow, but it's the
Triple
NFL
crown.
and the NFL is king. We all know that. I mean, so it's absolutely extraordinary. Well, here's one that I want to just hit. What's going under the radar right now on the positive side in the NFL and what's on the negative side? And if a lot of people aren't talking about them, but they should be, John, are the Jacksonville Jaguars. And the reason I say that is this is a team that started off really slow. They lost to the Washington Commanders. That was terrible, of course. Commanders came out strong game one. They had a very good start to the season, but Jacksonville lost that game. Well, all they did was come back and they took it to the Colts. They beat them 24-0. That's pretty impressive in football to shut out anybody when it's all about offense, and they're actually got a shutout there. But this week, John, they go out and they're playing the Chargers, and oh my goodness, they get out there and the offense, Trevor Lawrence, he absolutely looks like he's finally comfortable in the NFL game. He's got people around him who can do a great job. I think this is one of those teams that's absolutely a sleeper right now, John, in terms of the NFL on the positive side. On the negative side, I'm going to give you the New Orleans Saints. Why would I do that? They've supposedly got a pretty good defense. They got a new coach. You know, they got all this stuff going on. They got Jameis Winston. Well, that might be
the problem.
Jameis Winston, when you've got more interceptions than touchdowns, John, and you're a starting quarterback in the NFL, that ain't so good. And unfortunately, that has been the career for Jameis Winston. It's amazing to me that everybody every year says, I think this is the year that he breaks through. Well, he hasn't done it. He didn't do it with Tampa. He hasn't done it with New Orleans. And that's become a real problem. And by the way, they are going to be playing the Minnesota Vikings across the pond in London this coming Sunday. That's a home game for them, which is sort of weird. But and the Vikings will be over there with them as well, John. So that's going to be an interesting game. And I think the Vikings are rolling. So what do you think? What's wrong with Jameis? Why is he throwing so many interceptions? They got a great defense, but they can only do so much.
Pete, I think we saw two of the best yesterday. Tom Brady, still one of the best quarterbacks, and Aaron Rodgers, still perhaps the best overall in terms of leadership and so forth. No matter what you think of some of the crap that was thrown at that guy, still has one of the quickest releases I have ever seen, Pete. So when he sees somebody break from, being covered up by a linebacker who's dropping down into the zone, and that guy curls, as soon as he curls, doesn't wait until he curls, as soon as he starts that step on that curl, boom, that ball leaves. And Aaron Rodgers just has the quickest release. Tom Brady still has a very fast release for a guy 45. So I would say, Pete, that that's the difference. Everybody else waits until the guy is in position. And by then, the defense has reacted.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll hit a little college football, John, and then we'll be done with today's Rebels Edge. Here's what I got for you. There's two teams in the Power Five that I think absolutely slide under the radar. They have been sliding under the radar. They shouldn't be. And here's why, John. The Minnesota Golden Gophers. Yes, my team. I am not being a homer. This is a team that is 4-0 right now. This is a team that is number 3 in total yardage in all of college football. They're number 1 in total defense, number 2 in pass defense, number 3 in rush defense. I mean, I could go on and on. They've got a great running back who's now considered one of those guys in the top 5. for the Heisman Trophy. And John, they've got an offensive line that's the biggest offensive line since their offensive line last year, and it's bigger than anybody in the NFL or NCAA. So they've got these big horses up front. They're running the football and they're putting it down people's throat, and they dominate the clock. This is like a Wisconsin style offense or an Iowa style offense where people just don't realize when you get the ball and you hold it for maybe 38 minutes or 40 minutes out of a 60-minute game, you are going to win those games. And that's what's going on with the Golden Gophers right now. One other team similar to them, John, Washington. Nobody ever talks about the Pac-12. Washington, when they do, it's always USC, right? That's all you hear about is USC. Washington is 4-0. Washington beat Michigan State just like Minnesota just did. And I'll tell you what, they've got a quarterback who transferred from Indiana who is lighting up college football this year, John. He only, he went into the portal. All he's done is had the most yards passing of any quarterback in NCAA so far. So there's another team out there that I feel like is a lot like my Golden Gophers. What do you think about, are these sleepers, and should they be sleepers, or should they be sort of looking their way up that top 20 list maybe?
Neither of those two teams should be a sleeper pick, but neither of them are getting the respect they deserve. Washington Huskies or the Gophers. And Pete, I just want to throw out there that, our dad played at Cal. Our brother Paul played at Cal. I tried to play at Cal and didn't, but I'd say the Cal Golden Bears actually have an offense that is scary, Pete. 7 touchdowns yesterday. They routed Arizona. Now, the problem is they don't have the same defense that you've got in Minnesota. So they won, but they let the other team score a lot. But Cal was a quick strike offense. So that kind of belies one of those things that Pete said, folks, which is if you hold the ball for 38 or 40 minutes, you're going to win. If you score really fast, you still might not win. Now, they did this weekend, Pete, and my hat's off to the Golden Bears. Love to see it. They can score points now. Now they just need to shut down a little bit better on defense.
That's the sturdy Golden Bear, and that's why I think Goff is just fine, John. He's doing a great job. That offense with the Detroit Lions, I know I've went 5 different directions right there, but that offense with the Detroit Lions, every week they put points on the board. They're really fun to watch, and Dan Campbell, I have become a guy who's kind of quietly becoming a big Lions fan each and every week because of Dan Campbell, what he's doing with the defense and the offense. I know they lost and the Vikings won. Vikings had to come back to win. And, oh, by the way, you know what they did, John? They gave it to a guy named Kirk Cousins, who's I've been told he can never drive down the field to win a game. Well, he did 2 touchdowns. He brought him down the field. One, he threw the pass. The other, he handed it off. He was 5 of 6 in one of those. He was 2 of 3 in the other. And I'll tell you what, the Vikings are fortunate to have Kirk Cousins, regardless of what you might hear from others.
Folks, we appreciate you as always. Thank you, Pete, for all those insights. And if you'd like, folks, we encourage you to send us either tweets or emails. You'll see our handles coming right up, and we hope we see you tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern on The Rebel's Edge.